A haunted cavern harboring ghostly bandits, a dense Pacific Northwestern woodland where restless spirits roam, and ancient native ruins shrouded in myth and the paranormal await on this list of some of the most haunted state parks in the US. Let's jump right in. Hey guys, and thanks for tuning in for this exploration of some of the most haunted state parks in the whole of the US. From thick Oregonian forests to tropical Floridian pools and historic Illinoisan lodges, our country is chock full of fascinating recreational expanses that each hold their own unique and often dark histories, wrought with ghost stories and tales of the unknown. Are you sure you're ready for this hike? Our first haunt has us traveling the lush wilderness just north of Orlando through Blue Spring State Park. Blue Spring State Park, which is placed in Volusia County in Florida, is a breathtaking 2,643-acre semi-tropical natural expanse that holds the Volusia Blue Spring, which is actually the largest natural spring along the St. Johns River, and its bounds have long been tied to an array of native legends and eerie ghost stories. Historically, predating European settlement, lands now holding this park were initially inhabited by the native Timacuan people, who utilized the spring and its lush surroundings as a home while hunting, fishing, and more for hundreds if not thousands of years. Much later, in 1766, the spring was visited by botanist John Bartram, and after his research, would grow rapidly in popularity. Through the early 19th century, the site was acquired by one Wisemore family, who would construct a large plantation near, and who would find the region perfect for the growing of citrus fruits. In 1856, it would be purchased by orange grower Lewis Thursby, who would construct a house on site through the following year, and later, a small railway linking Orange City to the docks at Blue Spring was completed, following which, the Florida East Coast Railway was also constructed not far from park bounds. Following a killing freeze in the 1890s, most grow-ops around Blue Spring were killed off, after which the Thursbys would shift their focus from growing to tourism, while offering some of the best hunting and fishing opportunities around. And after years of use as a private park, in 1972, the expanse was sold to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and quickly gained recognition for several projects focused on its manatees, which in turn would result in the state's parkhood. Blue Spring State Park remains open into the present, offering a range of activities including scuba diving, kayaking, fishing, camping, hiking, swimming, wildlife watching, and much, much more. Despite its serene facade, however, Blue Spring has earned infamy due to reports of strong supernatural activity within, and those adventuring through its bounds have documented extreme cold patches felt in the normally balmy Florida weather, odd malfunctions with electronics and personal devices, and encounters with a range of apparitions dating back to some clad in traditional native attire. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded odd EMF fluctuations, EVPs as clear as the site's waters, and hits on communicative devices such as spirit boxes, while others have reported drum beats, native chants, and fire smoke without source, which are all believed to be linked to the restless spirits of the Timacuan people, whose sacred lands, burial grounds, and even former homes were destroyed or disturbed in the name of American expansion. Possibly the most haunted location throughout the park is that of the aforementioned Thursby House, and those who enter its bounds often report disembodied voices, phantom footsteps, instances of doors opening and closing on their own, a strange dizziness, and run-ins with various spirits of the Thursby family, who are observed going about tasks from life briefly before vanishing in the blink of an eye. Okay, so our second haunt takes us to the heart of Texas, to the iconic Longhorn Cavern State Park. Longhorn Cavern State Park, which is located in Burnett County in Texas, is a 645.62-acre natural expanse boasting an array of ruins, rock formations, cave systems, and surprisingly green landscapes. Its weathered bounds are home to a number of chilling old hill legends and spooky stories. Historically, predating European usage, the river-cut caverns held within park bounds, which are thousands of years old, were initially discovered by the Comanche around 350 years ago, and were used as a place for meetings, storage, and hiding. Later, through the Civil War, the site was utilized by Confederate soldiers and, according to local lore, by the notorious outlaw Sam Bass, though this latter story remains unverified. Through the 1920s and early 30s, Longhorn Cavern was inhabited for a time by a local nightclub and pseudo-speakeasy called Sherrard's Cave, and through its years, musical performances, talk shows, and other events were broadcast from the Dements all the way to San Antonio. In 1933, the site was dedicated as a state park. From 1934 to 1942, the Civilian Conservation Corps would develop the landscape while constructing Texas Park Road 4, a handful of residences, pavilions, and an observation tower. And through the years, the expanse would grow wildly in popularity. More recently, in 2006, curator of Longhorn Cavern State Park, one Stephen Kurtz, would reintroduce chamber music with the creation of the Simple Sounds concert series. On February 14th of 2008, local Burnett County band Redneck Jedi would hold performances on site while reintroducing dancers to the underground hideout. And on April 4th of 2008, Redneck Jedi would return to the park to record their 5th album. Later the same year, Fantastic Fest would host their City of Ember after party on site. In 2012, the cave tour area would welcome the installation of new lighting, and in 2019, the park was used as a filming location for famous YouTuber Markiplier for his A Heist interactive series. Longhorn Cavern State Park remains open into the present, offering a range of nature opportunities and events, all amidst its wildly unique setting. This fascinating history, however, is no stranger to ghost stories and tales of the otherworldly, and over the years, visitors to Longhorn Cavern have reported a range of spooky happenings, including phantom whispers heard through the dark, disembodied footsteps, and run-ins with shadowy apparitions that stalk the living. Possibly the most famous fable surrounding the cave itself tells of how in 1848, just 3 years after Texas had earned its statehood, one Muriel King, who was the daughter of a wealthy landowner, was kidnapped by Comanche forces and was held for ransom within the delve. When it came time for negotiations, settlers in the area felt the Comanche could not be trusted, and while they preoccupied them in verbal debate, the King family would hire 3 brave Texas Rangers who volunteered risking their own lives to save poor Muriel. Later, these rangers literally rappelled into Longhorn Cavern and, knowing they were outgunned about 50-3, made a valiant stand, partaking in a brutal gun and knife fight, from which they left countless Comanche dead or disabled before snatching up the young girl and rushing her to safety. As unbelievable as this tale sounds, it may surprise some that it's actually verified as true. Incidentally, the phantom sounds of the fight can still be heard emanating from the cave after dark, as can hushed voices, and the apparitions of a number of the fallen Comanche, all sporting grievous wounds, have been spied lurking all about the area, seemingly in a daze. Also reported around the park and confined to no area in particular are spectral Confederate soldiers, entities clad in attires spanning the eras, and the sounds of laughter, glasses clinking, and early jazz music from another age entirely. Number 3 has us venturing into upstate New York to the ever-popular Alagan State Park. Alagan State Park, which is located in Cattaraugus County in New York, is a massive 64,800-acre natural expanse filled with valleys, canyons, hills, roadways, rivers, lakes, historic structures, and more that are all blanketed in the lush greenery of the Allegheny Highlands Forest, and its bounds are enshrouded in a number of classic ghost stories, chilling local legends, cryptid encounters, and tales of the unknown. Historically, predating colonization, lands now holding the Alagan State Park were inhabited by a handful of tribes native to the region, including, and predominantly, the Seneca, along with Cayuga, and a much smaller number of people from the Neutral Nation. Following colonization, these same lands would go relatively untouched for centuries, with the exception of hunters, trappers, and some settlers, which formed New Ireland, a village comprised of Irish immigrants fleeing the Great Famine. And much later, in May of 1921, and through an act of New York State Legislature, approval was granted for the purchase of 2 huge tracts of land for the purpose of the creation of park grounds. In 1924, the first state park bond for this park was issued, providing funds for the development of the Red House area, its administration building, and a dam which resulted in Red House Lake. In 1926, Science Lake was formed and was utilized as a swimming and rec area, and between 1933 and 1942, the Civilian Conservation Corps would extensively develop parklands, and would establish a slew of trails, roads, bridges, campsites, picnic areas, and even ski resorts. Over subsequent years, the park was developed even further. Eventually, the ruins of New Ireland would be incorporated into the hamlet of Limestone, and by the 1960s, the park had been expanded to the point where it encompassed the towns of Red House, Elko, and Carrollton. More recently, in 2007, Allegheny State Park was listed as a top amazing spot in the nation, and in 2024, and just a few weeks prior to this upload actually, park bounds would be flooded with visitors as a point in the path of totality for this year's solar eclipse. Allegheny State Park remains open into the present, offering a range of opportunities for hikers, bikers, hunters, anglers, kayakers, nature enthusiasts, historians, and so much more. Chillingly, over its lengthy usage, Allegheny has acted as birthing grounds to a number of spooky stories and tales of supernatural activity, and both visitors and officials to its bounds have reported disembodied footsteps and voices heard from thickets, orbs that flit amongst the trees, and encounters with a range of apparitions in clothing spanning the eras, dating back to entities clad in traditional native attire. One more notable area of park grounds is that of its iconic Thunder Rocks. Now, according to native lore, long ago, two guardian spirits clashed over who could throw the biggest rocks to the top of the mountain or hill on which they now lie. And after hearing the thunderous clap of these boulders landing, a nearby Iroquois tribe who discovered the formation appropriately named them what else but Thunder Rocks. Near these ancient formations, many have described hearing chants and drum beats, and several have reported being chased off by what they believe were guardian spirits, whose attacks came in the form of odd supernatural happenings, electronic malfunctions, and intense feelings of panic. A commonly encountered apparition within Allegheny Park bounds is that of its legendary Flannel Man. Interestingly enough, sightings of the Flannel Man, which just as his name might suggest, include encounters with a spectral man clad in flannel and jeans, have been reported for decades now, and usually entail this figure as moving at a surprising pace along trails or near Science Lake, though he has been sighted in pretty much every corner of the expanse. Also reported across Allegheny and confined to no area in particular are a ludicrous number of cryptid or unidentified monster sightings, some of which include Sasquatch or skunk ape, chupacabra, and something called the Beasts of Sherman, which have been described as two large twin albino sloths that move shockingly fast. Some other tales from the park detail ritual sites or cult meetings that are stumbled upon by unsuspecting hikers, while campers tell of their sites being destroyed by unidentified forces, or of waking in the middle of the night to the sounds of someone or something invading their campsites. And a handful of informal investigations conducted all across the region have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and strange hits on thermal grids. Lastly, a number of phantom children have been spied in various areas, laughing eerily and playing about, and along one infamous area known as Witch's Walk or Gahai to the Seneca, and that's located between Bay State and Route 280, right along the Allegheny River. Those who have braved it have later told of run-ins with half-human, half-animal abominations, of a drumming that grows louder and louder, and of ghostly Confederate soldiers who are said to be stuck forever guarding a lost treasure. And on to number 4, which takes us to the center of Illinois, to the legendary Starved Rock State Park. Starved Rock State Park, which is located in LaSalle County in Illinois, is a popular U.S. nature expanse stretching over 2,630 acres that totes a wide range of canyons, buttes, and rock formations, all blanketed in lush greenery and cut through by the Illinois River, and its bounds have become somewhat infamous for their purported hauntings and association to various local ghost stories. Historically, lands now holding this park were initially inhabited by tribes native to the region long before European settlement. For instance, Clovis Point, which was unearthed within the park, sports evidence of habitation by the Clovis people that dates back to somewhere around 11,000 BCE, while several settlements dating back to the Archaic period, or from 8,000 to 2000 BCE, have been discovered along the Illinois River, and earthwork mounds were constructed all across the region by the Havana Hopewell through the Woodland period, or 1000 BCE to about 1000 CE. Through French exploration, the earliest interaction with local tribes was with that of the Kaskaskia, who were members of the Illinois Confederation. In 1673, Louis Joyet and Father Jacques Marquet were some of the first Europeans to explore the area while tracking a faster route to Lake Michigan. And in 1680, the Kaskaskia were temporarily driven from their homelands by the Iroquois through the Beaver Wars, until the French traded guns with the tribe, after which they were able to safely return with force. In 1882, a French expedition led by René Robert Cavelier, Sieur de la Salle, would construct Fort St. Louis on a large butte overlooking the Illinois River. Through the French and Indian Wars, this defense would be used as a refuge against the Iroquois, and eventually, over the years, the site was left abandoned. In 1890, lands now holding the park were sold to Ferdinand Walther, after which Walther would construct the Starved Rock Hotel and a natural pool near the base of the landmark. In 1912, the park was open to the public, and through the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps would construct a number of trails, shelters, and features while further developing parklands. In 1933, construction of the new Starved Rock Lodge was started. Following the completion of Illinois Route 71 in 1942, park attendance would absolutely boom, and in 1960, Starved Rock itself was declared a National Historic Landmark. Unfortunately, over the years, the Starved Rock Butte would erode due to foot traffic. To curb this erosion, in 1981, the Young Adult Conservation Corps would construct a staircase and platform, and in 1985, the Starved Rock Lodge and cabins were added to the National Register of Historic Places. More recently, in 2007, Starved Rock State Park was declared one of the 7 wonders of Illinois by the Bureau of Tourism, only further bolstering its popularity. Starved Rock remains open into the present, offering a range of hiking and biking trails, campsites, and options in lodging, kayaking, canoeing, angling, and swimming opportunities, alongside a host of historic and educational landmarks. Chillingly, however, the whole of this breathtaking expanse harbors a much darker legacy, one tied to native legend and tales of the otherworldly, and those who have braved its bounds have reported disembodied footsteps amongst the trees, orbs sighted flitting through the foliage, and unnatural cold spots felt even on hot days. One of the earliest tales surrounding the park's supernatural activity dates back to native tribes and tells that long ago, in order to avenge the death of Ottawa leader Pontiac, a group of Ottawa and Potawatomi cornered a small band of Illinois high atop the rocks and forced them to stay up there until they all starved to death. Not really all that surprisingly, subsequent tales claim the restless spirits of these starved men remain on site, and that their tortured cries can still be heard atop the rock formations, namely after dark. Incidentally, their full-bodied apparitions have been sighted at times, malnourished and abnormally pale, and have been known to approach visitors for help, only to vanish moments later. Disturbingly, these stories of starvation have also led to claims of encounters with Wendigo, which are terrifying creatures of Algonquin lore that are often bred of starvation and famine, and groups of hikers and campers alike have reported terrifying run-ins with these ghastly abominations, who've been known to stalk the living and mimic voices of loved ones or of crying babies to draw their prey closer in. Another terrifying Starved Rock tale tells of 3 Chicago women who, in 1960, were murdered within the forest, their bodies discovered later hidden within a cave. The ghosts of these women are said to stalk the woodlands and have been sighted by unsuspecting travelers who always describe them as beaten and battered looking and as drifting about unnaturally before fading away. During their fateful trip, these women were actually staying at the Starved Rock Lodge, and their spirits are believed to frequent this structure as well, with guests reporting doors opening and closing on their own, objects sighted moving about inexplicably, and ominous black figures that manifest suddenly, startling all present. Our 5th and final haunt hits close to home for me, and has us trekking through the sprawling Silver Falls State Park. Silver Falls State Park, which is placed out of Silverton in Marion County, Oregon, is a large 9,000-acre natural expanse containing lush Pacific Northwestern forests and a range of historic structures, all centered around its impressive waterfalls. Its bounds have long been shrouded in both ghost stories and tales of chilling cryptid encounters. Historically, lands now holding this ridiculously beautiful park were initially frequented by tribes native to the region, who first arrived to the Willamette Valley around 14,000 years ago, though more recently by the Kalapuya and Molalla, all the way up until the 1830s, when settlement of the region was started. Following this settlement, by 1888, the town of Silver Falls City was established namely as a logging village, following which the area's timber would be absolutely ravaged. Over time, local entrepreneurs would begin charging admission to the South Falls, which was used for extraordinary entertainment events in which daredevils would literally ride over the drop in canoes. In 1902, Silverton photographer June D. Drake would fight for the falls area to be declared a park, after which one set of falls would actually be named Drake Falls in his honor. In 1926, park status would be rejected after a National Park Service inspector found the logging-torn expanse wrought with stumps undesirable as a recreation area. In 1933, and after years of rehabilitation, the park would be officially open to the public. And in 1935, President Franklin D. Roosevelt would officiate the area as a recreational demonstration area, after which the Civilian Conservation Corps would set to work developing park grounds while constructing a number of buildings, including the South Falls Lodge. More recently, from 1946 through the 1950s, the lodge would be used as a restaurant. In 1983, it would make the National Register of Historic Places as the Silver Falls State Park Concession Building Area. And in January of 2008, Fred G. Rudd of the Oregon House of Representatives would seek a federal designation for the whole of the park to be officiated as a national parkland instead. However, this bill would eventually be denied. Silver Falls State Park remains open to the public to this day and offers an astounding range of campsites, educational plaques, shelters, and a mess of trails that cut right above and even under the impressive waterfall. Now, in pop culture, some of you may already be familiar with the Brett Donahue horror movie A Haunting at Silver Falls, in which, following the death of her father, a young female protagonist moves to the town of Silver Falls, Oregon, to live with her aunt and uncle, and finds a silver ring that causes her to have visions of a ghostly girl. And while this story is purely fiction, it may come as a surprise that the real Silver Falls is actually surrounded by a number of eerie legends and tales of the otherworldly. One of the park's most famous ghost stories is tied to the waterfall itself and to its days as a favorite jump site for stunt people from all walks of life. Tragically, it's told that a number of these individuals made their final plunges on site, and that their ghosts are forever tethered to the falls. Incidentally, those hiking near the falls, especially after dark, have reported watching bodies or even full canoes sail over the edge at frightening speeds, after which they fade into nothingness just before they reach the pool down below. Additionally, several walking the path above the falls have recounted running into daredevils in old-timey attire that appears so solid they think they're actors, before these figures are just gone in the blink of an eye. Throughout the park, officials, hikers, and campers have reported odd orbs of light that flit amongst the trees, phantom footsteps and voices heard emanating from empty spaces, and the smells of fire smoke without source. Several informal investigations have yielded strange EMF fluctuations despite a total lack of electricity, instances of personal effects going missing and turning up later further on down the trail, and accounts of both cell phones and other devices behaving erratically or just outright dying, and of vehicles that either stall or refuse to start, leaving their drivers stranded in the middle of the forest. Lastly, reports of cryptids throughout the park are exceedingly common and include run-ins with Sasquatch, Wendigo, skinwalkers, dogmen, and strange abominations that are unidentifiable in nature. And several more disturbing stories tell of campers who have been awakened in the middle of the night to the sounds of something large rummaging through their campsite that at first they chalk up to some sort of animal that's native to the area, until whatever it is starts to unzip their tents. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of some of the most haunted state parks in the US. If you enjoyed hearing my histories and ghost stories, subscribe to my channel, like this upload, and share me with anyone you feel could use a good scare. I'll catch you all next time.